Hey, welcome to Esports Mom Podcast. This is my first official podcast, and I'm excited to get started and get a few new faces and familiar faces for that on this. And wanted to begin talking about the real and ideal self of the pro player side of esports. And I am absolutely honored and blown away because I haven't seen either of these faces in a while. But from the Rocket League side, I've got PapaKnaps and JKnaps, better known as Jake and Wayne, but we're going to stick with the gamer tag so that's more fun. And I wanted to welcome you guys to a fun-filled few minutes to maybe an hour. We'll see how well you guys do, and we'll go from there. But just honored to have you guys both here and kind of talking about some things that mean the world to all three of us, for that matter.
And thanks for having us on, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Honored. I should bow down and worship, dude, because you started so long ago, and here you are, one of the OGs that's still standing in Rocket League, and I have so many questions I can't even begin to explain to you, but I think the fun will be as we kind of talk through this, like the stories and the humorous things that we can honestly talk about behind the scenes that most people really don't know because they just see you busting a groove up there and land trying to like win this trophy and all of the accolades that go with it. And I think the journey has definitely brought you both to a level that you probably would have never seen from the first time that I got to meet you at a LAN, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's hard to even realize the position I'm in at this point. Like, I'm 25 now and still doing this as a full-time job, so been very blessed to be in that position.
And did you start at 17 or 18? I can't remember.
Started at 17, I believe. That was the first year I signed with G2. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that feels like a million years ago.
Yeah.
And then you got your crazy dad next to you. And man, if we only knew then what we know now, huh? You probably would have never thought in a million years you'd be here.
Well, it's been a crazy journey right from the first trip we had together to Los Angeles, and you know, I've been fortunate that Jacob has played so long because it's allowed me to travel the world to many places I probably would have never gone to. And, you know, I try to keep encouraging him to play, but I know, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but he's been very fortunate in his career. So.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? You got to take me back because I have to laugh. You know, when you sit and you think about doing these podcasts and you want to like really put some effort into it, you know, we were all very lucky because I had the privilege to be able to take care of all the fun parts of the production and getting to know you guys and getting to know everybody, you know, all of the faces and names that everybody knows. But, you know, I think we never really asked or talked about that first time that Jake came to you, PapaKnaps, and said, I'm playing in this crazy Rocket League game and I just got an all expense paid trip to LA. Like, can you go back to that moment when that first time came to you and he talked to you and it just all of the things, the memories that come back?
So Kim, it probably was season 2. And I think, Jake, I don't know, you weren't on G2 at the time. And we have a summer cottage on the Atlantic Ocean in Nova Scotia. And I think Jake was probably 16-ish, around that age. And it was getting to the point where Jake and his brother didn't want to go to the cottage unless we had high-speed internet or had some type of internet. So the only option that it had down there was like a mobile hotspot, which was probably not very good, but it was better than what we had. And one of the things we'd do down at the cottage was we'd have bonfires. And Jacob, we have we have 2 cottages side by side, and the boys would probably most times stay in the one, and they'd be in there. You know, at that time I thought they were just in there playing video games for fun. And I remember this to the day. I was out at the bonfire with all the parents, and you know, we were having a few drinks and stuff. And Jacob comes out of the cottage, and he's mad. And I said, Jacob, what are you mad? He said, well, we got knocked out. I said, Jacob, it's just a video game. And he said, Dad, and he showed me his phone at the time, and there was at that time, I think there was 30,000 people watching. And I looked at it, and I couldn't believe it. And he said, Dad, and then his next word, he says, I'm pretty good, you know. So that was kind of the first, then I started getting interested. When I saw that there was this many people watching it, that's when the first interest I got into it. And then I think he went to G2, and it was season 3 that they were one of the favorites to go in North America, and they end up getting knocked out in the playdown. So I talked to Jacob, and I said, "Well, do you still want to go to the Worlds, even if you were knocked out?" I said, "Let's go. We'll fly to LA," and that was my real first introduction to the RLCS at season 3.
Man.
Yeah, so we actually like paid ourselves to go to LA because we didn't qualify. But I'm pretty sure I did a Twitch stream at the time, and my fans paid for my whole plane ticket to go.
Amazing.
Because at the time I was on G2 and it was a fan favorite team and had a lot of people supporting me. So I think my dad paid for the hotel and his own ticket, and I got my fare paid for by the fans. And
You actually won a tournament with Squishy and Torment, $1,000 tournament, and they gave their share of the tournament to you to go to help you pay for your trip.
Man, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
No one. It was funny, Kim, because we were in that theater in Los Angeles, and no one knew who Jacob was.
Was that Avalon, I think, or was that Wilshire?
That was the Hollywood Theater.
No, it was
yeah,
the Wilshire.
right.
It was the Wilshire.
Wilshire Theater, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yes, when I can tell you, well, you know, Jamie and Sheila and my whole team, we had so much fun in the back in the green rooms because those green rooms were so gross, and Sheila was so germophobic, and I'll never forget Jamie putting his hand in the middle of the 2 cushions and then wiping on Sheila, and she's like running for her life out of the room. And those days, there's just so many stories that we could probably tell, but that was just an experience that we were growing at that point. We didn't really even know to what level we were getting at. You know, Twitch was just ready to like start pushing Rocket League hard before we knew what we were doing.
Yeah, it was like the live audience was a lot more ahead of, or not the live, the online audience had so many more spectators than the in-person events at the time because it was so early on. It was like, how many tickets are they actually going to sell at these in-person events? And I think that theater probably only held about 1,000 people, but
yeah, because believe it or not, you know, whether we remember back that far, but I remember Twitch asking me to create the first event with Psionics, and we did the Avalon in LA, and I think we were excited at 500 people, and we thought that was just the greatest thing. And then you guys got up there, and you know, the simple props that were up there for you guys to play up on the stage and kind of creating the whole environment, you know, although you weren't there, but still like creating that mentality. There was Lachino, there was Garrett and Turbo, and like, you know, even I remember Scrub Killer just like coming and seeing everything because he was too young to play, and he was so mad that he was so young, and everybody's upset because they know he's coming, you know, up the ranks to be old enough to play, and everybody's thinking, oh God, what are we going to do with him? You know, as he's sitting back there like this little kid, you know, to see where he's at now. And it's that same thing. By the time you really kind of came in, it had just kind of begun its evolution of culture. And then here you guys are fighting, you know, to get to that space of like, what do I do when I make it versus what do I do when I don't make it? And we were always there to kind of prepare that behind the scenes experience. So I think that's what really blows my mind, that here you are in your 20s, you've done this for a while, and you can talk. I mean, we could talk about LA and Las Vegas and gosh, I mean, how many places did we go overseas? You know, London. I mean, I didn't even do all of them. I did, I think, season 1 through 9, and then I stopped there. But you know, that I think is probably where for these parents and these kids, like, I think the biggest question, whether you both want to answer it or separately, is, you know, you went from that moment of like, hey, I'm really seriously good at this, to now you're playing at your first LAN, and you're going from just this kid who's behind a screen to coming to a LAN, and all of a sudden people know you because of your presence. And now we're like, you've got this fan base that wants to see you win. But talk about that moment, like from going from just a screenplay to what it meant for you to be up on that stage and being able to compete, and kind of like, what was your feelings at that point, and what kind of things have you learned, you know, going from something simple to something really advanced, and what's kept you going?
say for me, it just felt like I would go for my normal life, you know, playing Rocket League at home and with my friends, to like almost a mini celebrity when you go to these events. It's like people, even in that first LA in Hollywood, like I thought people would be like, oh, it's cool to meet JKnaps, but they treated me like I was a king, and they looked up to me, like people older than me were looking up to me, and it was surreal because I always knew, like, I watched Call of Duty growing up, so I knew it was a possibility to be a esports player, but just a whole different feeling, like actually being looked up to by a whole community.
Totally.
It's
And
weird, yeah.
do you feel too, even psychologically, like nobody really, I mean, I was there to try to give you guys the support, both psychologically, emotionally, trying to get the competition in a place in your head where you could like not worry about everything, but just really focus. The part that I think was most impressive, not just with you and the guys that we got to grow with, but I don't know that anybody really understood the psychological ability to know what it was like to fail and succeed at that level. Like going up that first time for you to play LAN and knowing that you had to compete and that it was a make it or break it, and the amount of stress, mental stress. Like, can you explain some of that? Like things you've learned that moment to where you are now?
Honestly, I'd say like I could give tips on it, but even right now, like today, I have a tournament tonight, RLCS qualifiers, and I like am feeling the anxiety even 5 hours before I have to play against teams I know we're going to beat. You know what I mean?
Right.
I still feel that pressure, and I think it's just because I hold myself so high. You know what I mean? I want to
Yeah.
be the best at this because I put so many hours into it, and just a part, it's like if you put all your hours into going to school, you really don't want to fail, and it's like it means everything to you, and that's kind of what Rocket League is to me. And performing is succeeding, and if you're a Rocket League pro player, like winning the match or winning the tournament, that's the only succeeding I see as a pro player. And I get a lot of stress and anxiety just even thinking about like losing a match or a match coming up, and I just try to deal with that as best as I can. Like today, I already went for 2 walks outside, and I just do what I can. And it comes with being a competitive player in sports or
Right.
gaming or whatever it is. So
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Papa?
Well, I was just thinking on Jacob when he was really young in the game. Like that's other than going to school, which he missed quite a bit because all he was doing was playing Rocket League through into the middle of the night. I think as he grew and matured, he realized he needed a balance in his life, and the walks with the dogs or kicking a soccer ball out in the yard. It's I think there is a balance. And I remember something you told me, Kim, a long time ago was you used to tell the players like you're at a land, enjoy the environment. Winning is just a bonus. Like
Right.
how many, and I've said this to Jacob, how many kids your age have been around the world and seen the world? He was getting a good salary, whatever prize money you got on top of that. Yes, you want to win is bonus. And I remember you telling me that, telling the kids that, and but it's funny. Like I know Jacob's playing tonight, and I'm anxious already today. And I'm like that, and I've been like that for the 8 years, and even when the kids played sports, soccer, and stuff, like you
yeah,
just
he's not even the one playing, and he's anxious.
wow. I am, and I start when I go to these lands, I'm a wreck. Like I'm pacing and going, and it's probably because I don't have control,
Right.
whereas Jacob has somewhat control, but as a parent, a spectator, every parent wants their kids to succeed, and he's surpassed every expectation there could ever be for a parent, to be successful in a game. He's the oldest player. He's won majors. He's won large events. He's won
Yeah.
regionals. And I remember, I think it was season 4 or 5. A parent came up to me and said, "I want my son to be a professional Rocket League player." And I said, "That's great." I said, always encourage your kids to do whatever they want to do. But remember, I said, there's probably 60 million people playing this game in the world, and there's 48 kids up on the stage. And
Yeah.
I said, the chances of making this are like making the NBA or the NFL or NHL. So always have a backup plan.
Totally. And that, I think that's the greatest experience of walking kind of as the, Rocket League mom or the esports mom or whatever, and having had all that time with you guys and kind of growing with you and having a little bit of sense of common sensibility, if you want to call it that, where you're just trying to put some perspective into things. And, I'll never forget, First of all, Jake, I got to tell you something funny. The best part was you guys didn't see it, but I got to watch all the parents that when they kind of found themselves together, and they were watching you guys play. And honest to God, I don't know who was more nervous, you guys playing or your family and parents, your grandmother, even. Like everybody was just hilarious. Like I wish I had had video of all of this, and we could have created this collage of experiences over the years because I mean, even Garrett's parents. I mean, I even Justin's parents. Like all the years you guys have been playing, and they were absolute wrecks, and I had to like keep them as sane as trying to keep you guys sane, and it was so hard because you'd win and they were beside themselves, you'd lose, they were beside themselves. Like there was not a moment of non-emotion throughout the entire 3 or 4 days of land that we were there, and it's crazy to think like when you look at the kids now and you look at the parents, you guys make it look so easy. And I think that's the point is we're just trying to get across like this is not easy, and it's just as hard as if you, like you said, you were a professional athlete. Like there's so much against you to be able to come through that and to thrive and to even think that you could raise the trophy, let alone if you do, you don't even know what to do with it because it's like, oh my God, now all of a sudden you're doing it. And it's like, well, what's next? You know, I kind of count it like Kobe doing his 3-point shot, winning the game. And before you know it, they're like, so what's next on your agenda, Kobe? And you're like, but you just had the most amazing game, but now what? Right? And there's these expectations that you don't realize are there, whether it's from the fans or your own, demons in your head or whatever. And I think the other thing too, which has been interesting in the evolution, if you want to call it that, is these orgs, right? Like when we first started, we didn't really have strong orgs. We kind of did, but it was kind of a hit and miss, and some stayed, some died. It was kind of an ever evolving experience. But like now that you've been on a couple orgs, and no negative to any of it, but I think you realize there's a whole different perspective of play and responsibilities that had nothing to do with Rocket League. I think now you're seeing that too as you've gone through multiple organizations and where you've landed recently. So I don't know if you want to just share a few things from that as well.
Yeah, I do you mean like instead of rock like streaming and stuff like that,
Yeah.
like holding up other
Yeah.
parts of the deal that's not just performing in Rocket League. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh,
the responsibility to your orgs, what
yeah.
that meant.
Yeah, I think it's just like being a celebrity or pro or a professional sports player, like you have to be the best person you can for the sponsors because you're representing a brand that hopefully your fans will purchase or engage with. And I think being a good person, like a lot more people will engage with you and just want to be a part of the team you're on or whatever. And I think that's why Garrett, like the most humble people, the most personable people are usually the most successful, even in esports. Doesn't matter how good you are. Like if you
Right.
have a big brand, that's kind of where majority of the money is now. Like if you have a huge Twitch or YouTube, people value that more than if you're the best at Rocket League. Like I think that is kind of more valuable.
Totally. Okay, so let me caveat then next, and I'll have each of you share some. So Jake, tell me, as if you were talking to a high schooler. I've been dealing with a lot of high schoolers and some college kids and
Yeah.
mentoring them. Give them some advice. Like if you were to talk to yourself back at 17, what would you tell yourself at 17 that would allow you to have done a bit easier in your journey getting you to this point? What were some of the things that those high schoolers need to know because you're where they want to be? What's some of the best advice you could share? And it doesn't have to be perfect, just things that kind of come to mind.
Just like taking things for granted and like thinking you deserve. I really thought like because I was this good at the game, I deserve this team or this result or this money. And I just, as I get older, like I realized how lucky we even had the opportunity to play video games for money and just how blessed I was to be like have that timing of, oh, I was good at Rocket League right when it was able to be a full-time job. And I think like nowadays, especially, don't put your all into esports. I would still do what you want, like in school, and maybe you don't go to school, but you work full time. And I would just treat it as a hobby and like as a pastime because when you treat something full time that you really love, you kind of lose the love for it a bit. And
Yeah.
that's happened to me. Like I can't enjoy Rocket League as much as I do. I enjoy the competition part, but can't hop on and just like play with my friends and have a bunch of fun. It's not the same. And I think if I just use it as a hobby, it would have been a lot different.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you know, from your perspective, Papa Naps, how what would you say to the dad or the mom who's like excited to see their kids thriving and the reality of that, you know, whether they become a pro, go to college or do career, but just where you're at now, like what would be the things you'd share with the parents that would kind of give them some advice on things that you've learned along the way as well?
I think the big thing would have been, as a parent, it should have been a little more strict on Jake's education. But, you know, maybe he wouldn't be where he is if he didn't put the hours in that he did. But I think there's different opportunities now, especially with the collegiate Rocket League. You know, I think as a parent now, I'd probably push, if you can do both, go to university if you can on a collegiate Rocket League scholarship. And if you can pick up a professional team, then do both. But I think the big thing is, you know, and is to have that educational background in, because this, like Jacob's had a long career in Rocket League and compared to many pros, and you know, if you're only looking at 2 or 3 years of professional, then you definitely have to have a foundation to fall back onto. So
Totally.
yeah, so
No, that's awesome. I think too, you know, not getting too sappy, but I think, you know, if we could like, let's go back to just a different perspective and I'll come back to what I was going to say, but I think what's funny is if we say, okay, I'm gonna give you some names and I want you to think about some of the moments, right, that capture you in those moments and explain like the amount of family and love that we had. But if I say to you Rizzo, what comes to mind?
Just like another brother. Going to his wedding in May, so in Italy.
That's gonna be
So
amazing. I know he
yeah,
and I can't
just
believe it.
yeah. And Jazzo, you remember Jazzo, our manager and coach?
Yep.
He's coming to Nova Scotia in August. He claims so.
You're gonna
Yeah,
hold him to it now for
yeah.
sure. That's funny. What about Justin?
Justin, he's funny. He's a funny guy, just naturally funny. Still going too, like me. He's an uncle too. He's 23 or something. Great, that's crazy to think about for me, but me saying I'm old is probably crazy to you. So
Right, right, totally.
yeah,
Um,
but
and then Garrett, I'm just curious, you know, watching him kind of retire made me cry. I was like, how could he even still be going, but let alone he's
yeah,
retiring and then flips and does this whole thing with NRG and I was just like never saw that coming, but I'm really proud of him for doing that. But there's some funny moments and those moments of tears and then that moment he held that trophy in Madrid as I'm running my phone up to him for his parents, you know, being so excited to
yeah,
see him actually do it after fighting, you know, all those seasons to get there. But I can't imagine the stories, you know. I mean, if I'm just thinking of something, what comes to mind when you think of Garrett?
we had a trip in Barcelona, Spain, after one of the tournaments in Valencia, and I just remember Garrett drinking, and I never seen him drinking for the first time, so he was just, you know how he's kind of shy when he's
Yeah,
sober. He was the complete opposite when he was drinking, so
good to know. I like
it was
that.
a funny trip.
Or the fact that you guys loved when we went overseas because you were 18 and you could drink versus 21 in
Yeah,
the States, and that was like a whole
yeah.
different conversation.
The
That's
worst
for
is when
sure.
in Canada I could drink, but then I would travel to the U.S. and I couldn't because it's
Right.
21 there. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, if I had given anything for the moments when you all turned 21, I would have taken you out to like your first experience with your families and that would have probably been something that we're glad we didn't have video on at that point. That would have been just something internal because it would have been hilarious. Um, wow, that's awesome. So who do you still keep in touch with that you're still
I still talk to Garrett. I actually like asked him to team this season, but he told me he was like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to do content with Energy." So message him a little bit. I talked with Squishy because
oh
we were
good.
talking like business a little bit. He's with Cloud9 right now, and then I talked to Justin and Squishy and their girlfriends at the World Championship. They were both watching with their
Wow.
partners, so I was talking to them there, and yeah, still talk to most of the OGs that are still in it, and they're all very nice.
You know, it makes
Torment was my coach
oh
last
that's
year.
right. That's right. How'd that go? Was that weird?
It was very weird. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Wow. That's funny. And Papa Naps, are you keeping in touch with anybody in particular or here and there on Twitter?
yeah, we have a parents group on Twitter, and you know, a lot of even some like Papa Rizzo still tends to go to all the lands, but for the most part, like a lot of new parents on the scene, like Daniel's father, he's a great guy, and Beast Mode's father, they're all like they're the new generation, but they're all good. But yeah, the faithful is Ron. Papa Rizzo is usually there, and so I like to hang out with Ron at the lands and stuff. And he was he was in Dallas, and so was his boys and his daughter. So yeah, so
That's amazing.
yeah,
I know you can't keep the Rocket League community down. That is one thing I've learned no matter what the changes have been. You know, see, was it Section 101? You can't mess with Section 101. They're going to be,
104.
or 104, that's right. They're never, ever going to go anywhere. You can't get rid of those guys. They're forever, you know. They're not going to lose that excitement, I'll tell you. Well, in the last part of this, just really quickly, I think just talking about the future, I think there's a lot of people that are kind of sad to see how Rocket League has been going. You know, again, nothing to Epic's, you know, good or bad. You know, they bought RLCS, or I should say Psyonix and RLCS and the whole Rocket League experience, and we kind of knew things were going to change. We all knew that coming up, but I think now, what kind of advice to, you know, or what are your thoughts in the future? Like, I think for me personally, just kind of being on the outside now looking in, it's like, you guys are Rocket League. That's the bottom line. I think that the new generation coming up needs to understand their purpose, and that it is a brand regardless of their own brand, and that what they do or don't do does affect the overall community. And I think the community's asked for a lot more, you know, because of what we started. I think we trailblazed a hell of a experience that brought Rocket League to the level it is. And I think there's part of me that is sad that, you know, not just that I can't be there, but that I see a lot of the areas of need to be able to really like bring back that spirit, you know, that we were able to do there. But from your perspective, being on the inside of it, what's the thoughts, you know, as you move into this next year and couple years ahead?
I think like right now we're in a tough spot because I think the sponsors that Epic Games are getting for the esport isn't as great as it was maybe in season X or 2021 season. I think the sponsors just aren't willing to shell out as much money as they used to because there was a lot of like potential around esports revenue, and people were paying top dollar expecting high revenues in 5 to 10 years, but they didn't realize it probably is going to take even longer to see maybe half those revenues they were expecting. And that's why I think it was possible to just do professional play without YouTube or having a brand or anything back in like a few years ago, because people were expecting this to grow at a lot faster rate than it did, especially Rocket League esports.
Yeah.
And I think now just the sponsors aren't willing to shell out that much money. And the sponsors that are willing to are 18 plus, like gambling sponsors and stuff. And
Right.
Epic Games really wants to keep it PG. So,
Yeah, it makes a difference.
yeah.
And, you know, and you guys have grown too. I mean, the new kids that are on the block are what you guys used to be, but they
Yeah.
don't have the support system that you
Yeah.
guys did with what, you know, my team and I did. And it's not to say it's all about me, but it's more just you know, the idea of it. But, you know, in the same token, I think that it's got to be community first, and it's got to be pro players being able to play. And I think the whole idea of putting a model where money is first is always going to be a failure. It's always got to be the end user, right? You guys are playing for your fans. Your fans need to feel that they're the most responsive to the rewards of it. And you know, and brands don't want to come in because, like you said, there's nothing to connect to, and they want to do more than just eyes on their product. They want to, you know, I do 3 pillars when I do all of my events. It's brand awareness, it's marketing, and it's sales. And back in the old school day, when you marketed and sold, you had to promote something that made sense. I mean, you can't just pick up your phone and be like, you need one of these because it's really cool. But to the guy who's never had one, what does that mean, right? Just because you see something doesn't mean you're going to buy it or experience it. And I think we just got to get back to community first, gamer centric, take care of the pro players, put you guys in a place where there's no entitlement, but it's really that community of brotherhood, or brother and sisterhood for that matter. Now that we've got the girls really working hard to be a part of the scene, and they've been doing that a long time, and I'm really grateful that that door has been open, because it's been needed a long time. And then just the parents being able to have more support too. And I think if that ever comes back, there's always a joke in my head, and I say this out loud, but they'd probably kibosh me in 2 seconds. And that is, if I had enough money, I'd buy Rocket League myself and start over, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. So, we just got to make the most out of what we have. And I think, hopefully, knock on wood, I would love to get the OGs out and start doing some fun events and building out some cool ideas that we could get the community back, that's non RL land related, and be able to do something with the dads and the moms and the grandmas. And you got to hug your grandma when you see her. God help that lady, I love her. But just all of that, we just have to all band together and really like think about the creative side, and not worry about all the money that comes with it, because that comes as a bonus to what you do when you give it a lot of love. So for that, any last thoughts before we close? You guys have anything that you'd like to share?
No, I agree with that completely. And I think now that a lot of the money has kind of gone from the esports side, I think it can get back to like the grassroots of, we're not only doing it to make a salary like full time. It's more about the game and the community. And I think the streamers right now are carrying Rocket League completely. Like Alpha Cap and all those type of streamers are like hard carrying Rocket League. And I think we do need to get back to that. Just having fun in an event with people that you meet from around the world who you met on Rocket League, and not just money, money, money. So
Totally. And you can't see it, but all over my office, I have every season from 1 to 9 where you guys all signed them. And I found the one from LA the other day and just started laughing. And I thought, it was definitely the most fun I've ever had. I got to do Call of Duty and some other, different games, but Rocket League gave me a sense of pride, because we really were a family. We'll always be a family. There's nothing that will ever tear all of us apart. And I think that's the excitement. Papa Naps, any last thoughts?
I just think, as I've seen it over the last 8 to 9 years, I think it's just been a missed opportunity. And maybe it's because of the sale, but I always thought Rocket League had, especially when it was going to be the demonstrator sport at the Tokyo Olympics, I just thought it had the potential to be so big, because, I'm down here at an RV park and we have seniors here. And the next thing you know, when I'm watching Jacob, my lot is full of seniors watching Rocket League because they can understand it. Put the ball in the net, right? So I think if there's been a missed opportunity, it should be a tier one esport. Probably it should be the most popular esport. And maybe I'm biased, but I think it's so easy to understand, and it's just there's a missed potential there.
Well, you never know. We might start a revolution without being obnoxious about it, right? Just get everybody to come together and figure out a system that gives Epic and Psionics a little less stress, and can do the same thing, right? Get us old farts back in it, and maybe do something that will make them proud. Who knows? But you guys, thank you. Like, what a great thing to see your faces. I mean, I miss you guys more than you know, and I'm out in Central Oregon doing my thing, but I'll be back at LAN hopefully soon. Not necessarily to work, but to at least play. So we'll get all the OGs together and figure out what we're going to do to have some fun, and then catch up while we're at it. But everybody you talk to, send them my love. Give everybody a hug for me and the family, and stay tuned for the next craziness. But I'm just beyond grateful. I can't even begin to tell you. And Jake, go rock it tonight.
I'll try.
Just be in the moment, dude. Just be in the moment. Don't worry about all that other crap. You've done it thousands of times. Just pay attention to what's going on in front of you, and walk away knowing that it doesn't matter right, wrong, or different. You still rock, especially in my book. So I'm never going to favor any of you guys equally, because I love all of you guys. But I will say at this moment, I'm gonna fight for my support of you tonight. So rock and roll, and I'll look forward to watching it.
Thanks for having us, Kim.
Thanks for having us, Kim.
My honor.